What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm doing another If I Design video because you guys seem to really enjoy them, and I love making them, so it's perfect. So today, rather than completely overhauling a shoe, what I'm going to do instead is actually combine two sneakers together, or I guess just the technology from one shoe and an old school sneaker. If you follow me on Twitch, you may have already seen this design because I did a quick hour and a half sketch of this shoe over on Twitch. If you don't follow me on Twitch and you like these videos, what are you doing? That's all I ever do over on Twitch. You guys definitely need to check it out. It's twitch.tv/Seth Fowler. It's linked in the description below. It's really easy to find, and all I really do on Twitch is sketching, unboxing, and sneaker releases. It's just all the good stuff from this channel. So today's concept was heavily inspired by the Nike Huarache Adapt, which just released, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I wasn't able to get a pair and I'm still kind of jealous. So today what I'm going to do is take the design language from the Huarache Adapt and of course the Adapt lacing technology and put it onto a sneaker that hasn't had it yet. Something like the Nike Presto, which I actually think is a better sneaker. So as you probably already gathered from the title, what I'm going to be designing today is a Nike Presto Adapt because I just think that would be such a cool combination of things all in one sneaker. So for this design, I'll be pulling inspiration from a couple different shoes, obviously the Huarache Adapt, but also the regular Presto and the Presto React. So what I'm going to do is kind of mash all these sneakers together into hopefully a design that looks good. So let's start things off with some really quick sketches of what this shoe could look like and then pick one of them and move forward with the final design. If you are at all interested in the tech that I'm using for today's video, I've linked it all in the description below. And just to answer one of the most commonly asked questions, I'm using a Wacom Cintiq 20 HD, I think. 22 HD. This is an old boy. This guy's been with me since 2012. It's lived with me in 3 different states, and it's lasted for 7 years, so shout out to Wacom for that. But without further ado, let's jump right into the sketching. So let's start out kind of simple and sketch something that looks a lot like the Presto that just has the addition of auto lacing technology. So the way that I'm thinking we can do this is maybe have these auto-lacing wires kind of weaving in and out of the eyelets that are already there. That might be a cool way to do it. I'm not sure if it's the most effective way to do it, but I think it might look kind of cool. So that'll be the first concept, and I'll just kind of play with it for a second, see how it works out. I think it might be kind of cool if the way you unlace your sneakers is with the little button on the tongue, because I know the Presto already has sort of a bulge or a bubble there, and it'd be cool if we could add some functionality to that. So maybe that's the eject button. I don't know. Kind of throw an eject logo in there. That doesn't look amazing, but hey, it's a concept. It doesn't matter. What I think I'm going to do now that I've got this quick, rough design laid out is actually drop the opacity of this original sketch and overlay it with a new, cleaner version of the sketch so you get a much better idea of how this shoe will actually look. Now that I've got the general outline of this auto-lacing Nike Presto, what I'm going to do is go back in with some really thick and dark lines to separate the different panels of the shoe and also try and separate it from the page. You might have noticed that I move this Wacom tablet around a lot, and that's just because I'm used to moving paper around, and even though I've been drawing on this for 7 years at this point, it's still just really easy just to kind of shove it around, and it's probably not the best thing in the world because it leaves marks all over the table, but that's just what I do, unfortunately. And so that's pretty much the first concept of the auto-lacing Nike Presto. It's very similar to what we have with the original Nike Presto. There are obviously some differences in the midfoot cage area where the auto-lacing system is, and of course you've got the little buttons down there at the bottom and at the top. But I think it's a nice looking sneaker and it really stays true to the Presto aesthetic. One thing I've learned while working on sketching like this is that layers and naming layers are the most important thing in the world, because I always use a million layers, and if I don't label them, I just screw myself over because I'll accidentally add a line to something I didn't mean to add a line to, or I won't be able to erase something. It's just a nightmare if you don't label them. So that's what I'm doing now, just to try and kind of prevent that problem, because as much as I love drawing in Photoshop, you really need to take care of your layers. Now moving on to the next concept, what we're gonna do is actually create something that looks a lot more like the Adapt BB, that sort of very simple, very minimal Adapt basketball sneaker. So I'm still gonna use the same base of the Presto, but I'm gonna try and make the upper as futuristic and as simple as possible. And of course, I've gotta turn my Wacom tablet because that's just a nervous tick now apparently. My dog is dreaming and his tail's wagging right now, it's ridiculous. He never wags his tail because he has one of those really short Frenchy tails, but when he does, it's the cutest thing in the world, and he doesn't even know he's doing it. So this design is about as simple as it can possibly get because the entire lacing system is going on under this sort of presumably Flyknit cover like it is on the Adapt BBs. And I think what I'm going to do now is the same thing that I did with the last sketch and actually drop the opacity and go back in and clean it up. I don't know what it is about mini Nike swooshes on the lateral side of the toe that I just really dig. But I mean, I know the Presto has a Nike swoosh like right there on the vamp, but maybe I should just leave that one. I don't know. One of the concepts will have a mini Nike swoosh on the toe because I just love that. And there's the second concept, all done, or pretty much all done. I mean, it's fine. I like it. I don't mind it too much. Let's move on to the next one. So I think I'm gonna do one more concept before we move on with the final design. And I'm gonna base it loosely on the Adapt Huarache and also on the React Presto and try and keep some of the elements that make the original Presto what it is. So I guess I'll just go for it. I'm not really sure exactly how it's gonna look, but here we go. I really like the idea of having a backwards Nike swoosh on the heel counter area of the shoe. I feel like it's a nice subtle callback to the brand, and it can still be functional too because I'm actually going to put some of the Adapt lacing technology in the swoosh itself. And then as for the way that the shoe laces, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to handle that. I think what I might do is have some sort of covering that covers up the Adapt wires, but maybe have it have some sort of gap or something that makes it look a little bit more interesting. I'm not totally sure yet. I really like that look a lot, and it's very similar to what I did on the Twitch stream, and I actually think I'm gonna go with this, but sort of modify it a bit from what I did in the past. I'm not sure exactly how to handle this lacing system. I really like the way that looks. I know it's a little complicated, but once I sort of come in with all the different colors and stuff, I think it will simplify itself out and not look as crazy as it does. Even though these two elements right here aren't connected, I still want them to form the shape of the Nike swoosh. So I'm gonna try and make these chamfers or edges pretty much line up in a way that will form that Nike swoosh. Of course, you gotta have the Adapt buttons as well. I'm pretty much just playing with the shape and playing with the form and trying to flesh out all the little details. And as of right now, I'm pretty happy with the overall shape. I kind of think it came out pretty nice. There are a few things I want to adjust, and I'm going to do those really quickly before I go in with the final sort of outline. I'm playing with the shape around the buttons. I feel like this sort of basic, almost rectangular shape is kind of boring, but I want to play with something a little bit more interesting, but not make it too crazy. Like, I feel like that's a little bit, I actually don't mind that. I'll keep playing with it. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with the overall shape and design of the shoe. I do have to admit this sketch is very, very messy, so what I'm gonna do is go back in and redraw it in a much cleaner way so that I can work out all the little tiny details and make sure that everything kind of works together. So again, what I'm gonna do is drop the opacity on this guy, add another layer, and then get to work. And now at this point that we've got all the lines cleaned up, I'm gonna go back in with a much thicker dark outline and finish this concept off. So that pretty much wraps up this concept. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think it came out pretty nice. So now what I'm gonna do is compare it to the two other concepts and we'll pick one to move forward with. I feel like at this point the choice is pretty clear. We're gonna go with option number 3. So now that we've chosen a concept to move forward with, what I'm gonna do is color it in, work out all the little details, add texture, and then finalize it. And because we're trying to go for the sort of OG Presto look, I wanted to pick a colorway that a lot of people knew and would recognize as soon as they saw it. And I also thought it would be nice to pick a colorway with some yellow in it because the Adapt Huarache also has some yellow in it. So the colorway that I went with was the Brutal Honey colorway. So I've got a photo right here that I'm gonna use as a color reference. So I'll use the eyedropper to pick certain colors from the shoe and overlay them onto the actual concept. And the way that I add color to my concepts is I just create very simple color blocking first with like one black, one yellow, one gray, one sail colored, and that's about it. And then what I do is I mask each one of those sections and I shade within those masks. So the first thing that I'll do is I'll turn off these outer layers so we just have a really simple outline of the shoe, and then I'll go in and block in certain colors. So I'll start with the black on the upper, and I'm not gonna use just a solid black because you wouldn't be able to see any shading. I'm gonna use more of a darkish gray. And I'm gonna be honest, my coloring is not gonna be in the lines, even though it should be, and I'm just gonna erase anything that kind of goes outside. Now that I filled in the upper covering of the shoe, I'm gonna go in on the lower layers, like the areas that are slightly covered up by the covering, and I'm gonna use a slightly darker shade of gray so that they seem like they're underneath that upper layer. So I finished the two base layers. Now what I'm gonna do is go in with the sort of semi-translucent gold color that you see on the midfoot cage of the original Presto and add that in a lot of different places on the sneaker. So originally I had this area being a gap, but I feel like that's just too thin for that material. I feel like this plastic probably would be too fragile if there was a gap there. So what I'm gonna do is just make this entire area here just one large plastic panel. There we go. And now the cage is filled in. I'm gonna go in on the midsole, I guess, next. We'll see how that goes. Something I like to do when I'm filling in a really light color is turn off the background layer. So you've got the checkerboard, so I can really see where these like really light colors are so I don't accidentally not erase them. And of course, don't forget to label your layers like I've been forgetting to do because that will make things a lot tougher. Now I think I'm gonna go in on the buttons because I feel like they need some love. Now the last color that I need to add is the bright yellow, and I'm gonna put that on the sock liner and also the front outsole of the shoe. And there we go. That is the fully filled in Presto Adapt. Now moving forward, I got a shade. So what I'm gonna do is mask out the areas that I filled in and shade within that mask. And whenever I'm shading, especially on like a softer material, something that's not high gloss, something that's much more matte, I usually like to use a very wide, very soft brush. Now for the upper of this shoe, it's probably going to be some sort of neoprene like the original Presto, so it does have a little bit of a sheen to it, but it's still a pretty matte texture. I think it's pretty decent for now. Now what I'm gonna do is go in and shade the parts underneath the upper layer. Next up, I'm gonna shade the cage, and because there's a couple areas that are chamfered and areas that don't have totally normal surfaces, I'm actually gonna go in with a couple different layers and do something similar to what I did on the entire shoe, where I block off a certain area and then mask it, and use that same approach to really make this cage look more 3D. Now, while the cage isn't gloss, so it won't have any crazy sharp lines, it is still shinier than any other part of the shoe, and it will reflect that in some way. Now that we've got the base shading in for the cage, I'm gonna do the same thing for the midsole. Now what I'm gonna do is go in and make this button base area super glossy, because it's glossy on the Adapt BBs. Don't know what it is on the Huarache Adapts because I don't have them, but I feel like that'd be a cool look. So at this point, what I'm gonna do, because we've got all the base shading in, is actually turn off this this line layer, which I'm really nervous about. No, I gotta leave that on. Actually, you know what? We're just gonna drop the opacity, and we're gonna re-sketch all these lines so that everything's a lot cleaner, and go back in with much thinner lines that are much more detailed to kind of edge everything out. So obviously I'm still outlining, it's taking a lot longer than I thought, and my camera's getting a heat warning, so if things just randomly shut off, that's why. Realize this looks ridiculous, but it has to be done. And there we go. The initial outlines are in. Let's turn off the underlayer and see how it looks. Not bad. Not bad. There's a couple things I need to fix, but nothing too major actually, which is nice. Okay, now the next step is going in with the final shading and the final highlights, and then we're done. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with how the sketch turned out. So I think I'm just gonna give it a bold outline to pop off the page, and we're done. And at this point, I think I'm done with the Presto Adapt. So what I'm gonna do is add my signature and we're good to go. Cool, that's it. So here's my Nike Presto Adapt concept, taking elements from the Adapt Huarache, the original Presto, and the Presto React. And I'm pretty happy with how it came out. There are obviously some details that would have to be worked out if this shoe was ever to be put into production, like the whole auto lacing system. I just tried to design something that looked nice and not really something that 100% would work in real life. But overall, I'm really stoked on this design and I would love to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But that pretty much wraps up the video for today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't yet. Now I would love to know what sneakers you would like to see me design next. So let me know in the comment section down below. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitch if you want to see more Twitch streams that are very similar to this video, twitch.tv/Seth Fowler. And as always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.